The entrepreneur we're going to be having at this time is Affiong Williams, who is a Nigerian entrepreneur. So because of our time, I will not read her profile, but then I will allow her to introduce herself during the session with Nelson. Yeah, so Nelson, if you can have your video on, that would be interesting. And of course, you're welcome, Affiong. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Joshua. Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. I'm pleased to be hosting this particular fireside chat with one of the phenomenal entrepreneurs I've ever met in my journey as an entrepreneur as well, and an ecosystem builder. I'm pleased to be hosting, I think a proper title for Affiong is really phenomenal. Phenomenal Affiong Williams, who is our guest for this morning. I'm CEO, founder of Real Fruits. And before she introduces herself, I will just do a quick read, just about the paragraph, just to see how astonishing she is. And when I say she's phenomenal, you would agree with me just by the one paragraph I'm going to read. So, Affiong Williams is the CEO and founder of Real Fruits, the largest food processing, packaging, and distribution company focused on being the leading food agribusiness in Nigeria. The company, founded in just 2012, less than a decade, retails a range of dried food and nut snacks through a variety of channels, including over 400 supermarkets, airlines, schools, hotels, and locally, while also retailing internationally in markets like US, in Switzerland, in Belgium, in Saudi Arabia, what have you. It's just amazing. Real Fruits is an award-winning brand, winning both local and international awards. So one of them is a Women in Business competition in the Netherlands. She's been recognized by Forbes magazine as one of the most promising 30 under 30 entrepreneurs in 2015. In 2017, she won Entrepreneur of the Year, awarded by the prestigious Women in Management, Business, and Public Service. That's WINBIS. There's just a lot we could talk about. I would want to do a drum roll and welcome. Should I call you Ms. Williams or Affiong?
Yeah, Affiong is fine.
Affiong is fine. Fantastic. So happy to host you this morning. I want to start off with you just telling us a bit about yourself beyond what I have read. Who is Affiong?
Pardon?
So I was saying beyond what I have read, who is Affiong?
Okay, welcome everybody, and good morning. Thank you all for having me here. As most people may know or who are living in Nigeria may have heard about our brand, Real Fruit. Obviously, that's my entrepreneurial venture and claim to fame, as it were. But as an individual, obviously, I think I would describe myself as extremely motivated, passionate, and dedicated person. I started my business primarily to solve one of the biggest crises that I thought, and I still think, sort of plague Africa and Nigeria today, which is youth unemployment. And I felt that enterprise was the best way to sort of deal with that challenge and give people, especially young people, the dignity of work. And that's sort of why I started my business, and that's been my motivator ever since. So I would also say that I'm quite driven to hopefully bring about change in my own way that, sort of has a positive and outsized impact in my community. So that would be me in a nutshell. I am a wife and mother, and I also enjoy running. I'm very physically active. I run marathons for fun, and I really enjoy doing hard things. So that's me in a nutshell.
Thank you very much. I was just going to pick on a point you just touched on. I was excited reading about you to read that you have completed 10 marathons. How did you do that? 10 marathons.
Yes, it's more now. I've done a lot more than 10, but obviously running is something I've been doing for well over a decade, and an activity I've come to love so much. So it's not that difficult, actually.
I would be doing my first marathon by close of 2022. I promise you.
Go for it.
I feel ashamed I've not done a 100-meter dash in my life. And you're doing 10 marathons and more already in your lifetime. I'm going to start training very soon to be able to do that. And I'm going to link this. What is the connection between your appetite for running a marathon, or running marathons, to the appetite for the kind of speed you're running in your business? Is there any connection? I want to string the two together.
Yeah, I guess I would say marathon running is a lot like life, I guess. It's like, you know, it's one step in front of the other, and it's long distance. It's not, it's people often say things, you know, life is a marathon, not a sprint. And I think that's true in terms of business. As you'd mentioned, my business is almost a decade old, and you know, we are still breaking new ground. I mean, obviously we launched a product in a market that obviously did not know of the product prior. We were the first company to launch dried fruit as a snack commercially in Nigeria, and before that, it didn't really exist. So we did need a lot of time to sort of bring the market, you know, on board to accept our product, accept our brand, accept our price, etc. And all those things took a lot longer than I anticipated before I started my business. I mean, raising capital, everything in the business has taken a lot longer than I thought. And I think that that's, you know, what you often hear entrepreneurs say, that, you know, if you know, it definitely takes time to build these things. So having the stamina and having the, you know, sort of the patience and dedication to, you know, continue to build something despite how long it takes, I think is a, you know, is a very sort of common amongst entrepreneurs, and also just common in the life cycle of building a successful business.
Wow, amazing. Again, still on that, I mean, you introduced something really as almost like a first on the market to do that first mover. Did you have anything like a fear of rejection? What if the market doesn't accept this? What if it fails? Was there that kind of fear, not just from you, but even comments from friends and family?
Sorry, you were broke up there. I couldn't hear what your question was.
Yeah, I was saying that since you had a first mover, I mean, you were the first to introduce first dried fruit and market as a snack. Was there any expressed or possibly an inherent fear of a possible rejection, either from you or by your partners who thought this may not do well because they had not seen it being done? Was there anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, I think we definitely faced a lot of, even if we didn't really face outright rejection, there was certainly a lot of pause about, you know, our business and the potential, just because it took a lot of time for us to demonstrate that it was a product that the Nigerian market would accept. And we definitely faced a lot of pause from our customers as well. I mean, in the beginning of our life cycle, we used to get a lot of, you know, product returns because people didn't know about the product, or it was staying on shelf for too long, or customers were just not, you know, sure about it, and we had to sort of work through all of that. So certainly, yeah, being the first mover does have its advantages, but has a lot of disadvantages as well. And I think that, you know, we were not spared from those. So we, you know, that was also part of our story, having to sort of, you know, sort of intimate the market, and just continue to sort of impress upon them that we had a great product and it was something that they would come to accept. And, you know, it took a while, but I would say around 2017, we felt very, very confident that this product was here to stay in the Nigerian market, and we had found our customer base and it was growing. Sorry, you're on mute. So yeah, sorry.
Sorry, yeah. Did you at any point feel like giving up? I mean, when you began having some of that feedback, product return and what have you, did you at any point feel like just find something else to do?
Yes, I mean, I think that's very, very normal. And some days I still feel like giving up. But, you know, obviously now we're a bit more, we're a bit more steady. So it's not as serious. But yeah, definitely in the past, there was a lot of, I would say I had a lot of anxiety and worry about whether or not I had picked the right business opportunity, because it had taken so long for the customers to come on board with the product. I worried that we were not growing growing fast enough, and there were just some, just concerns around whether or not, we would be able to scale the business, and all those things used to make me want to quit. But I just, I think just for my personality, I'm not the kind of person, I don't quit a lot, but I'm the kind of person who likes to pick one thing and see it to the end. So I certainly have a lot of staying power, and of course had a very strong support system in my family and my employees. So those things just continue to motivate me to keep going. And to just continue to build a business. And of course, when you start seeing some successes, I think I always mention that some of the things we started seeing turn in the business, for instance, some of the customer bases that we put in our business plan, being able to finally serve those customers like airlines, like oil catering companies, etc., started to give us the confidence that we were onto something. So, there was also this confirmation bias of just us achieving some of the things we said we do that would sort of keep me motivated to move forward. But if I were to talk about all the challenges, obviously, we would be here forever. But I think just, I think I've been able to build the mentality around how to move over challenges and get over them, and just be focused on solving problems and sort of living to fight another day. And that's really helped me, I think, extend my staying power and get the business to the point it is today.
You are dropping quite some amazing nuggets. Thank you very much. And to our audience, if you have any comments, any reflections or questions, you're welcome to drop them in the chat room. I'm going to pick them up. As much as I'm excited talking with Affiong, I would want to still read your comments and reflections as well, and get feedback from here. But you mentioned scaling. What has been your journey? So let's say you began, first of all, what made you settle on this particular business, Real Fruit? And at the time you launched, what was your scaling journey like? Did it go according to plan? Were there some setbacks? But essentially, can you walk us through how scaling happened for you? And that is because we have businesses who struggle to scale, across the continent. They stay at the same stage for years. How did you scale?
Yeah, so I think like most entrepreneurs, you start off with a very, very grand vision, and then you quickly wake up to the reality that you don't have all the funding or the support or the networks, or even, time to achieve everything you want to achieve. And I think what was clear to me in the beginning was that, one, it was not going to be easy to raise money for the business, and two, we had to really focus on investing in the activities that would move us forward. And for us as a business, my big idea in the beginning was come to Nigeria. Long story, I actually thought I was going to win a government grant to set up my factory, and I never won the grant. So I had moved back to Nigeria with no money, and I didn't have any really other alternative of raising money. So it was clear to me that we needed to really focus on what would move us forward. And in the beginning, that was actually selling product. I think it's very important for African entrepreneurs and Nigerian entrepreneurs to say to sort of, focus on making sales and demonstrating market demand for the product. And once we realized that that was something we would do, we said that we would focus. So I said, I would focus on building out a brand first, and getting contract manufacturers to support in our production before, worrying so much about scaling and getting my own factory, etc. in the beginning, because I didn't want to fight too many battles at one time, that all, processing and building out a market. So we focused on building out our market first, and we spent 5 to 6 years doing that. And in that time, what we've been able to do is build over directly, which is a huge advantage for the business. And I think that also gave us the scale and the growth and the opportunity to scale, which obviously changed the story of our business in the sense that we could show investors and show people that we have been growing, demonstrated growth year on year, and we had other opportunities. So we focused on a market to sort of like farm strategy versus the other way around. I think that has been the one decision that probably helped us get to the point where we are today. It was about focusing, and it was about, really understanding our sector very well. And that takes a lot of time. And I think, it's taken us 9 years, but we finally raised our Series A, our first institutional investment that, will allow us to scale up and build a commercial factory that obviously opens up a whole lot more business for us. But I think, the decision, the journey to get to this point was really based on us focusing on building customers, building revenue, understanding the lay of the land, understanding our customer network, and even understanding very strongly the supply chain in Nigeria as regards to fruit, which is a very complex environment. And I think one thing a lot of entrepreneurs, especially in manufacturing and processing, overlook, which is like, where are your raw materials going to come from? And can you get enough to feed a factory of a particular size? So we have really spent all this time learning and being sector experts. I mean, and I don't say that lightly. We know a lot about our sector, and more than I would say argue anybody else, as it's our job to know. And I think that's also helped us in our scaling plan. So, we focused on market first, focused on growing, and now we are focusing on expanding our manufacturing capacity to be able to, lead us to the next level of growth.
That is amazing. I think you make quite some insightful remarks when you talk about focusing on the market first and then growth. I just want to find out. So when you moved to Nigeria, you thought you could get a government contract and you couldn't get that set up, a government grant for the factory, and that didn't happen. How did you finance the very early stage? So you just raised the first Series A. What kind of funding have you also been able to secure before the Series A? And what were the things that favored you in winning these investments, unlocking them for the business?
Yes, so I mean, I obviously, like most people, I put in all my savings, and I started getting investment and loans from family and friends, and won some grants here and there, but not that many, and then just focused on, extended sort of angel network, to raise more money to demonstrate growth. And I think this is what I would advise for a lot of people. It's that, when you start the business, you always obviously think big picture, and then you have to now start breaking it back down to what you need to do this year, this month, this week, etc. But when it comes to raising investment, I think because it's not that easy to raise institutional capital, and there are just not that many avenues to raise a lot of money, what I found to be very successful for me was sort of raising small amounts of money and demonstrating how far that money would go. So if I wanted to raise like $100,000, I would be very clear about what that would take us in terms of revenue, how much revenue we would make, what it would do in terms of increasing our, either distributable distribution assets, or if it would be for hiring new people, or what, basically just a very more focused milestone based outcome for raising smaller amounts, because you can't, if you go to like your family, a friend, or somebody who a family member introduces you to, you're not going to convince a stranger to give you $1 million, but you can convince a stranger to give you $50,000 if you demonstrate that that will go somewhere quite realistic, a realistic plan for where that will go, and basically what the outcome will be and how it would get you to the next level. And I think that that's one thing I learned along the way. I was way more successful when I was raising small amounts from people, but very clear about where that money would go versus when I was trying to raise a large amount and obviously not having the milestones and the revenues to back that up. So we grew like that, raising, you know, little amounts from different people here and there till we were able to demonstrate that we'd gotten to a point where, you know, we have seen quite dramatic growth and we could raise institutional capital. And like I said, that was a 9-year process. I hope it doesn't take 9 years for other people, but it took a very long time. But, you know, it is the nature of operating in Nigeria, I would say, and Africa to a large extent. There's just not a lot of capital out there, and you have to demonstrate very clearly you know, why you are deserving of the capital. The other thing, obviously, that was helpful to us in terms of raising money was having a strong team and demonstrating that we had built out a team. I have a very, very strong team of managers, and we operate our business with a lot of strong processes, and I think that's sometimes often overlooked, sorry, but you know, I think it definitely adds the competitive advantage of a business trying to raise capital. So I think also just our staying power and the fact that we've lasted this long, I think also sends a good message to investors that they can bank on us being able to sort of weather storms and, you know, achieve our goals no matter what. So I think those were the key things that helped us get to the point where we were able to now raise institutional capital. Of course, I mean, I always am quick to say that, you know, these are very situational, networks matter, you know, who you know, where you went to school, all sorts of stuff. So it is a complete package, but for general business, I think for general, you know, business, I think entrepreneurs need to look at what stage they are in versus what type of capital they're trying to attract. And if you're in the early stages and small stage, don't waste your time trying to get like private equity or venture capital. You're better off, you know, talking to 100, you know, 20 friends and family and getting them to give you small amounts to execute and move forward. And as you grow, you can start focusing on bigger, you know, bigger capital pools. So, and obviously, you know, obviously, as you grow, you have to formalize your business more. You have to, you know, keep track of all your numbers, records, audited statements, etc. All those things are very important, and entrepreneurs need to focus on that as well.
Thank you very much, Affiong. I think we may have to find a way to get Andy to just host a session for entrepreneurs on growing a business and capital raise, because typically you hear people in the very early stages chasing you for $1 million when they've not made the first 100,000. But it's good you're able to break it down into the processes and how you want to demonstrate the traction of what you've done, the 100K, before you think of the next phase. And then over a 9-year journey, you can look, of course, it doesn't take 9 years for everybody, but it's really about proving that the kind of traction that you can show and tell somebody, give me this because I've done that with this much. So great point you make. But I want us to just delve into your cross-border scaling. You've been able to scale across, right from Nigeria, now doing US, Switzerland, Belgium, Switzerland, Saudi Arabia. I'm sure there may be a few others coming up. What kind of challenges did you face in this cross-border approach, cross-border scaling, and how did you do with them? How have you been successful in getting presence in all of these countries?
So I'd actually say that the selling our products abroad is actually not that difficult. A lot of people think that you need all sorts of like certifications and all sorts of things to sell our product, your product internationally, which is true and not true in the sense that it depends on who your customer and what they're asking for. It's not actually dependent on the country. So all the international markets we've served are as a result of customers wanting to buy from us and basically we send the products to them. So it's and mainly by air, so it's not as tricky. The big problem we actually have is scale, because to really delve into the export market and sell at the quantity and scales that make sense, you need a lot of product, and unfortunately we just don't have the capacity yet. So part of expanding our factories to allow us to do that at a larger scale, because a big goal of our business is to sell made in Nigeria products across the world and at a large scale. So that's actually one of the bigger challenges we face. But in terms of selling small volumes to all the countries we've sold, it's actually not super difficult to achieve.
How about the logistics side of things? I mean, moving things across logistically, sometimes it's quite expensive to move. And I would also like to, I'm curious, I don't see any African country on your list beyond Nigeria. You're doing mostly beyond Africa. Is there any particular reason, and what's the plan for SSA?
Yeah, because it's actually more difficult to sell our products in Ghana than it is to actually sell them in Saudi Arabia. So it's not, unfortunately, it's more to do with the ease of moving goods, logistics. Not physical movement of goods is hard, but also there are a lot of barriers from, regulation, certification, the cost of registering products, etc., that make it very difficult to sell. And for the size of the market, it's not that, it's not that attractive, because there are just so many barriers. So that's why we have not really pushed to sell our products across the continent, and why we focus on, international markets versus regional.
But do you think the Continental Free Trade Act would make any difference to your prospects across the continent?
No, not really.
Let's have a
Yeah, because I mean, if you look at ECOWAS as an example, ECOWAS is meant to be a sort of, the liberalization and trade scheme is meant to be, sort of a preview of what AFCTA is about, is meant to be, and there's still very many headaches and also logistics, and I think we have, people challenges around the sort of customs networks and all of that stuff that sort of create roadblocks. So I'm not that hopeful about it, because even in West Africa, we've not managed to actually get that moving seamlessly. Whereas if you look at East Africa or Southern Africa, the free movement of goods is way more enabled than in West Africa. So yes, and obviously there is just also the cost of logistics that makes some of the movement of these goods quite unattractive. So I'm not sure about the potential, of the free trade agreement, especially just based on its its implementation in reality.
I think we can have that another conversation on this later on, but it's something we'd like to discuss more beyond this platform, possibly to see because whatever it is, we need to be able to do business on the continent. So what do we need to do to make this happen? We could look at another conversation, possibly Andy could hold after on this, and then we'll see. But just a quick question from one of the audience: how did COVID-19 impact your business, and how did you ensure sustainability?
Yeah, so I think COVID affected everybody's businesses, quite adversely. Fortunately for us, we were, obviously because we're a food company, we didn't, face, sort of prolonged, depressed closures on our business. And we, and obviously because we sell a healthy snack, I think people were looking for more healthy options during COVID. And we also got some windfall from this increased disposable income that people were spending on food because they weren't spending on other things. So I think net, we were favored in a way. I would say that, obviously, I say that very, very carefully, because people, there were huge, obviously, upsets to the global economy and obviously the economy here in Nigeria. And inflation and food inflation is something we're battling now because of the effects of, lockdowns that meant that, farmers couldn't move goods across and it was very expensive to transport. So I think there's some latent effects of inflation that we're facing as a result of COVID. What we did do was really leverage technology and really push our online sales, which has continued to grow. So that was a new customer segment that opened for us.
Did we lose Affiong?
The online segment opened for us and has been a huge growth area. And also, I guess, in Nigeria, what we're seeing is a lot more people, a lot more supermarkets and retail points, opening close to people's homes as work from home becomes something people do, etc. So we're taking advantage of that. But we were fortunate last year, and we've had a very good year this year as well, and continue to grow. So we are hoping that we can continue to just take advantage of that growth and also, open up new channels for our products, because we did lose some channels. So our corporate channels have been severely depressed and have not come back. And so we're trying to diversify our channels, especially outside of Nigeria as well, to just make sure that we are more sustainable.
Amazing. I think it's good to see a few winners. Of course, we're quite careful in talking about our wins because it's a challenge for a lot of industries. But I'll try to wrap up now. There's a lot of back-end conversations on our time. So I would not push my luck any further. If not, I wouldn't be favored. But just in wrapping up, just a few things that struck me very hard was one, you didn't want to fight so many brothers at a time. So you really started with the vision, but try to focus. Let's pick one and win on that and move on. Let's try to demonstrate year-on-year growth. Let's focus on understanding the sector we are in, building customers, building markets, building revenue, understand your industry like no one else would do, understand the source of raw materials, plugging into friends, families, and extended angels before you can now start talking to VCs and PE firms. Raising small amounts of money in small rounds before you try to really move on. Audrey just added building the right team. That's a comment that came across. So you said you have a very strong team of management, and that's really helping to get things going. Thank you very much, Audrey. Others could also share their comments, so I may not be able to read. But I think we need to start thinking of putting some of these things down and start documenting the journey so that other entrepreneurs could really pick up bits and pieces from what you've gone through. I think it's quite an inspiring story. For those of us who deal with entrepreneurs on a daily basis, the kind of lessons that we try to pass across to them, it's good hearing them from somebody who also lived the journey and experience and have seen success on that. As we wrap up, one word that comes across as I listen to you is resilience. You seem to be an epitome or embodiment of the word resilience. But in wrapping up, can you share what is that one point that you want to leave here that we should just take home?
I think that, I always like to encourage entrepreneurs to really, sort of focus on their vision, but be flexible on their approach. And also, I think one thing that also really helped me is just reaching out to people in the industry around the world for information and knowledge. I think that's something that's also underrated, and people often assume that people are not going to share, but most people are more than willing to share and give information. So trying to leverage other people's, people who have gone ahead of you to really learn the lessons from them is very helpful. And also just sharing your progress and sharing what you're doing with the people who you want to be partners and to be, support your organizations in whatever capacity. So sort of understanding who your audience is and communicating and being strategic in sharing information with them is very helpful, so that you're not reaching them when you need them, but when you do actually need them, they've sort of heard about you and they've been kept abreast of your progress. So I think that's very helpful. and you know, obviously joining the right communities where you can build your knowledge, get access to opportunities, and just continue to build your vision. So I would say those are some tips that I can leave the audience with.
Thank you very much. I've been speaking with a gazelle this morning who is running the speed and the journey of entrepreneurship with systematic processes. It's been great speaking with you and hosting you this morning. I believe this conversation can actually go beyond today. So thank you very much for your time, Affiong. Thank you to all those who joined this conversation, and big thanks to Andy for hosting us. Joshua, if I were able to physical conference, I'm giving the microphone or the podium back to you. So please take the podium back. Thank you, Joshua.
Wow, this has been amazing. Thanks so much, Nelson and Affiong. This is really interesting, and thanks for sharing your journey with us. One thing you mentioned at the last part of your session is actually focus on your vision and be flexible with the approach. I think that's very great. And of course, if you are also taking home some of these insights, please feel free to share via the Twitter if you're outside of Nigeria, where you can use Twitter, or if you still have access to it. And yeah, so we